Apparently, I'm stuck in 2006 recently talking about Code Geass and Black Lagoon this week, but it's not bad company to be in. Well, you could say Black Lagoon is bad company, but in a more literal sense given it follows, the criminal activity of the Lagoon Transport Company. A four-man group based in Roanapur, they often take on more dodgy work to keep the cash flowing in. The Captain Dutch keeps everyone in line. Revy works as the unbeatable firepower, Benny as the brains and resident techie, and Rock as the new guy? He's a man still coming to terms with his transformation, a former Japanese businessman. He somewhat leaves behind and is somewhat forced out of his once simple and pointless life, instead joining the band of criminals and their torpedo boat. Although he left behind his morality and sensibility, he can't abandon those concepts outright, causing him to be a very grounding force in this very criminal world. And one of the selling points of Black Lagoon is just this, the unique perspective of the only normal man left in a world of illegal insanity. He encounters warmongers, Nazis, horror movie style murderers, killer maids, and even vampire twins in his adventures, and he always brings a more down-to-earth perspective, allowing the insanity to remain not grounded, but in perspective. It's as much about the humane paradoxes he encounters as it is the kick-ass action. This more moral note also makes him butt heads with the others, most notably Revy. She's about the direct opposite of Rock, a woman with a mostly unknown past except for the harshness of the world she saw during her upbringing, which created the cold, murderous woman dubbed Two Hands for her dual-wielding style. Quite the contrasting pair, they disagree on anything from the value of Nazi war medals to human trafficking. These differences lead to a few tense encounters between the pair, some of the best moments of the anime. They offer a deeper look into just how complex, or just how shallow, the pair's traits are. There's also some of the most real fights I've ever seen, following less of a straight line designed to get to the point, but a jagged path that has all kinds of stops, turnarounds, and dead ends like a real screaming match would have. But at the end of the day, and with some extra thought, the points start to show themselves, slowly unveiling the character changes over time as they unknowingly disparage not just their target, but themselves as well. And as a very pleasant note, these changes actually occur over the entire anime, rather than as an arc or a subplot. This slow creeping change is ingrained into the fiber of the show, mostly in Rock, whose entire point is just that, to grow, or regress depending on how you view his evolution. It isn't immediately satisfying, but has a much greater payoff in the long term. And while you're watching the change slowly unfold, you get some explosive action, oftentimes quite literally in fact. It's probably some of the most satisfying gun-related action in anime, not quite as personal and western styled as Bebop or Trigun, but more almost like a video game. One versus an army, and the army is always going to lose. There's enough showers of lead to kill the entire cast tenfold, yet they always survive in pure badassery that manages to get close to juvenile and edgy without ever crossing that barrier that leads into unenjoyable territory. And most times, the one doing this shooting is Revy, all the while smiling, simply enjoying the throes of death ever present in her life, but never managing to swallow her whole. She's vicious with the greatest deadly smile in all of anime while she dispatches her foes. And this is a common theme for the woman of Black Lagoon. 9 times out of 10, they're the most deadly one in the room. Sure, Revy is the most prominent, but I'd be a little afraid for my life if I didn't mention Balalaika. The head of Roanapur's ironically named Hotel Moscow, she personally describes her life as dancing in the pits of hell. She's not just deadly from her own power, but the absolute loyalty she has from those around her as well. Every soul in Roanapur knows one thing at least: don't cross her if you want to live. And not to be tortured, like having your knees shot out so she can watch you bleed out, crying and struggling as some kind of fucked up revenge. You know she's trouble when even Revy doesn't want to be on her bad side. And there's still Ida and Roberta, with the latter gaining some quite deserved Terminator references from the crew. If you were getting fed up with weak portrayals of women in anime, then look no further than Black Lagoon. It doesn't avoid every pitfall, but stays clear of the most heinous ones and allows its female characters to shine brighter than almost any of the men. A refreshing note, and with their viciousness, one that plays into the mood and setting as well. None of them chose to be the way they are. Revy was a child with no choice but to survive by any means. Roberta and Balalaika were used by those around them and molded into killers, things like that. To create such bloodthirsty people, this has to be one fucked up world, and it is. And this only strengthens Rock's role in it all, an observer to the fucked upness just as we are. And fittingly, none of them are perfect in this imperfect world. Under the grit and sheer crass that prevails, some of the characters are realistically weak. They're great characters, strong physically, but oftentimes weak or terrible people. I won't spoil just how they are or who, but sitting down and really looking into what some of them say reveals what feels like a very accurate portrayal of people who see the world as unchanging. They stagnate themselves as terrible people because the world is either perfect for them how it is or not worth fixing at all. They can't beat it, so they join it and try to self-justify their actions in any way possible so as to not lose what they have. And Rock once again provides an interesting view into this idea that he finds himself thrown into, providing some useful and important commentary. If you want to check out this idea specifically, look at the card on screen now. Overall, if you enjoy something a bit more dark, gritty, and sometimes quite crass, or can at least stomach it, then this is the anime for you. I was worried it might be a bit much for me, but I'm very glad I tried it out anyway. Hardcore action tamed with some serious and personal goals and moments that culminates from a scrambled mess into a scrappy yet concise story. It might feel slightly repetitive at moments, or have some episodes that feel slow in between major events, but it all matters in the end, and will never not be entertaining. Just be ready to strap in for one hell of a wild ride.